athletes go on SNL.
Jason, you guys we're good.
I don't know about that.
All right, we'll start with an opening statement from head coach.
Okay.
And then we'll take questions.
All right, good to see everybody. Obviously, week 2, big week for us, just a big week of practice and improvement and development. There's a lot of stuff going on with this game. You know, we have the Native American Land Acknowledgement, which is like, you know, a great collaboration between, you know, campus partners and local tribes, and we're gonna have great, you know, performances, and I think it's gonna be a really cool thing. We also have, you know, this is our partnership with Davis Monthan. And so if anyone's not using their tickets, please, it's just an awesome opportunity to donate those tickets to Vet Tix. I think that'd be a great deal, you know, for those people that serve our country. And then I think, you know, we've had a great week of practice, and I'm excited to see how the Zona Zoo shows out. I'm excited to see how our fans show out for these players. I'm excited to see what the Wildcat Walk looks like. That was just such a great scene a week ago. And I'm hoping we can double down on that and continue to make that something that is an epic component of Arizona football, is the players getting off that bus and just feeling that energy and that excitement from the fan base with our cheerleaders and the pride of Arizona is just a really special moment. So we're excited to play. We got Weber State coming in here. Obviously, they had a tough week last week at JMU, but they'll be ready to play. You know, every time I've played against an FCS team, they come in and you know, they know that this is a big opportunity for them and that you get their best shot in every way. And I've been through this coaching football a long time, and I've had good days and bad days in this situation. And so we're working our tails off to make sure that we play our best football on Saturday night and keep moving in the direction we want to move as a football program.
Thank you, Coach. We'll start with Justin and then Troy.
Can you share with us just the workload that the scouting department has, guys like Fletcher Kelly and Geiska, and just what they do on a weekly basis, and just how they were able to scout so many FCS guys and bring them here to Arizona?
Well, those guys basically live here. You know, I say that jokingly, but not really. The amount of hours and intention they put into their jobs is incredible. They're extremely knowledgeable and extremely thorough. And I think, you know, first of all, I think the line between all of these levels is getting thinner and thinner, right? The separation is getting smaller and smaller with the revolving door of transfer portal. Just with the development that's happening on the high school level, these players are just more ready when they get to college football. And then the ones that aren't, you know, if they end up having an opportunity at Division II, Division III, you know, FCS, what happens for a lot of times in those situations, and it's definitely the case with some of the guys on our team, is they got to go to those places and play and develop, and it accelerated their development, and now they're more ready to play than someone who's maybe been here for 3 or 4 years because they've actually been playing in the games and developing through the process of real football and, you know, in-game action. And I think, you know, so when, you know, Fletcher and Geiska are going through all those guys, they're looking for guys that have demonstrated that they can perform at a high level on the FCS level. And we're excited about the guys in our program, players in our program that have come from that and the contributions they're going to make this year and next.
Troy and David.
The Big 12 this week announced a new award in terms of student section of the week. I think it went up north. Just your thoughts on that award, and what do you want to see from the Zona Zoo this weekend?
I think that's awesome. And I think that's something that the Zona Zoo can compete for every week. You know, I think if we're in concert, us competing on the field and them competing in the stands, we're going to have a hell of a game day atmosphere. And that's what we're looking for.
David and then Brian.
Coach, how did you assess your guards play offensively in that game with Michael Wooten and Alexander Deuce, and how you guys graded them out?
I think there were good days and bad days, or good moments and bad moments. I think, you know, every game, it's first game. It's the first time Michael's played in there. Obviously, Deuce is coming off a season where he played a lot, but he was a young player with relatively no experience. And so I thought there was some good stuff they did. I thought the fact that we were able to run the football effectively, you know, against a team that did a good job the week before against Stanford in the defensive line was important, you know, and then I think there's room to grow. And so I think, you know, you look at that first game and you're like, we can be better. We can play better at all positions, you know, but I mean, I think Michael and Deuce are excited to play again. They've had a great week of work.
What are the challenges, I guess, in this second week? We're seeing it around the country where a lot of teams have had that big first week, but then a lesser opponent in the second week. What are the challenges in that second week and making sure you're keeping that red line high from the first week when it's really just the start of the season momentum?
I'm glad you mentioned the red line. That's kind of the answer to your question to me. I think if we play with great effort, if we are just dead ass serious about playing with fanatical effort, 100 every play, I think we'll give ourselves a chance in every football game we play. The other parts of that, we talked about it in our press conference, whatever that was Monday, about we think we could level up in the execution phase, especially on offense. And I heard that, Coach Gonzalez gave you a half-hour dissertation on how our defense can level up too. So I think you guys already have the coaching points in that department. But, week to week, you're trying to improve. Everyone makes this big deal about week 1 to week 2. Like, it never stops. You don't just like, oh, okay, we improved after week 1 and we're done. No, it's a constant chase of trying to improve every single week and improve your football team in all phases every single week, and it doesn't stop.
Brian and Michael.
Danny had mentioned a couple of the defensive players who may be able to make their debut this week. Is there anyone who didn't play on offense that you think could be available this week?
Right now, let's see who might be available this week. It depends on how they do tonight a little bit. And so, I would say, there's a chance for Brent Brennan. There's a chance for Chris Hudson, but we won't know until we get them really going full speed tonight.
Michael and then Jason Barr in the back.
You mentioned the other day about Cameron Barmore, that the Cam of spring is totally different from the Cam of training camp. What happens in the interim for a guy like that, or for guys in general, that enables them to maybe make that leap?
I think every player is different. You know what I mean? So to talk about like just the blanket statement of what happens, the blanket statement for what happens to all of them is, however many hours are permitted of lifting, strength and conditioning and all that, right? Like just like them getting pushed, physically and mentally in that space over the course of that second half of spring or, and then also the June and July, and I think one of the things that helps accelerate that for those players is a lot of the work that they do in terms of the running, catching, football stuff, that's on their own. And so that peer pressure becomes a driver for elevation, right? Like then all of a sudden, Sam Olsen and Kean and Tyler are pushing Cam, right? And I think that's why you see some of those jumps. And then for some people, it's funny, I get this question frequently, like, how come so-and-so is such a good player as a freshman and this other guy, the light didn't switch on until he was a junior? Every player is different. In some cases, it's just a matter of a young man making a choice. Hey, I'm done sitting on the bench. I'm done being average. It's time for me to man up and kick ass and attack this thing. And then all of a sudden you see them start to exponentially ratchet up.
Jason Barr and then Justin.
Yeah, for a team that had 3 new coordinators, you guys never looked confused at all in week 1. I think the second. But sometimes teams come to the line of scrimmage, you have to call a timeout. Your team never called a timeout, because you look prepared.
It was game 1,
When you talk about improvement, is there something specific? And obviously, you want to see a win against Weber State, but when you have an FCS team,
yeah.
is there something specific that you're looking for that you want to see with the improvement?
Well, I think I mentioned it, with Dave's question. Like the improvement on the execution side, like that needs to be visible for me, and for our staff and for our team. I think there were too many opportunities in that game where we didn't get done on third down what we wanted to get done. We didn't have the percentage of touchdowns that we wanted in the red zone. And then defensively, I know Danny went through it with you guys, but, when we talked about just, guys executing the details of their assignment down in and down out on defense, especially in the first half of that game. So there's so much growth for us in that, winning one game means nothing. It means nothing. We're trying to do that each week. And right now, all we're focused on is, we put the Hawaii game to bed last Sunday, and we've been focused on Weber State since then.
Justin and then Jason Sheeran.
How has Noah gone about his preparation this week after what happened on Saturday?
Help me clarify, like, what happened. Like, you got to be more specific in what happened.
Well, just as far as
He didn't turn it over. We won a game,
Yes, but just as far as, I guess more so than Noah, just the passing game in general, how has just that whole operation gone about preparing for this week?
Well, I think it's been really similar to last week. I think last week there was some stuff where first game trying to do too much or trying to make plays instead of just executing the offense. So there's been a drill down on everybody just doing their job. and executing and, doing their job with Redline. And that part of it, are you full speed, right? How's your effort? How's your execution? And then are you accountable for the stuff that you did on last weekend that wasn't what you want it to be? And there have been very few players in my lifetime that prepare as hard as Noah Fafita does. I mean, he is really, really special that way. So I got full faith in him. I can't wait to see him play Saturday night.
Jason, Sharon, and David.
I'm going the two-question route. Zoe mentioned the other day that Weber State does a lot of different things defensively. What do you see from them on that side of the ball?
Yeah, they do. They carry a lot. They carry a lot of scheme, right? Which I think is hard because it can be confusing. You're seeing a bunch of different stuff play in and play out, and that part of it is interesting. And when you do that, just do you think how clean can it be? You know what I mean? But I played against Weber lots of times in my career. Those kids are always tough. They're always hungry, and they're coming in here. For some of those guys, this is, a huge opportunity because a lot of those guys, just like the players that are playing for us, they wanted to come to University of Arizona, or they wanted to go to wherever, Texas or whatever. And so they're having opportunities to play in these arenas, play against this competition. It's an opportunity for them to show what they can do too. So you get everybody's best shot.
Malachi Bailey had an interesting quote the other day. He said, it's not about the buildings and all that, it's the people in it. How do you show it up when a recruit comes or a transfer comes to campus that it is about the people in it and not necessarily the facilities and stuff like that?
I think that's really cool. I didn't know he said that. But that is how we're built. You know what I mean? I do believe, the people make the journey. That's what you remember. That's what I remember from my college experience is the people that I shared that experience with. And I think that's what our players remember too. The players, the coaches, the trainers, all parts of it. Everyone kind of contributes. Everyone's on the journey together, and the journeys are special. And so I think every place has their own stuff. Every place has a stadium and weight room and all that kind of stuff. And some places are different or better than others. But I think the people that make your experience worthwhile is who you share the journey with every day. And that's your teammates and your coaches and all the support staff and everybody that surrounds it, And so I think it's something when players come here, what they've told me, the feedback is it's something they feel. It just feels right, feels like home, that kind of thing, which I think is good. Because if it feels right, it normally is.
David and then Troy.
Coach, I know Danny Gonzalez has raved in a couple of these press conferences about the new trainer, Geronimo Bocci, and I had asked him about him in camp. He indicated that it's a little bit of a different philosophy that he's using in recovery for some of the guys that are injured, and I was wondering maybe if you could elaborate maybe on what that recovery process has been, how maybe that's different than what traditionally you might see in that space.
I wouldn't say it's anything drastically different. Geronimo is a guy that's got a lot of great experience. We've been lucky here. I think we've had great people in that space since I got here. Now we're on our third head trainer. I'd like there to be a little bit more consistency there, and I'm optimistic that Geronimo will be here for the long haul. But he is aggressive. He really pushes the guys, which I think is good. We have great communication. He's an over communicator with our players, with our coaches. We meet as a staff once or twice a day on the injury report and the status of each player as they're going through it, so that we can support the kids on their journey to recovery also, right? That's a big part of it. And then he does a great job working with Coach Carroll in the department of just kind of the prehab, right? What can you do, the prevention piece, so that our bodies are in a great place that gives us a chance to avoid some of those significant injuries.
Troy and then Michael.
Similarly to Jason, but on the offensive end for Weber State, what have you seen in just looking at them this week leading up to the game?
The quarterback is a stud. He's a big kid, and he can run it and throw it. He's got a big physical, athletic body. I think that when you look at them, they do have the ability to run it and throw it, and they want to mix in a little bit of that with him too, which I think is always a challenging thing. It's always a challenging thing when you have a quarterback whose legs can become a factor, in the offense.
And then adding to that, you guys have played now back-to-back dual threat quarterbacks. How does that prepare you for Big 12 play when you're facing the Avery Johnsons and Utahs of the world that have those quarterbacks?
Yeah, it seems like everybody has one of those guys, right? And we got to, if you're looking at our first, month plus of football, everybody has a pretty dynamic guy in that role. And so you hope there's some carryover, right? You hope schematically there's some carryover. You hope for your players there's some carryover of just understanding what that is in terms of, lots of defensive football is based on getting +1 to the football, but the quarterback gets those numbers, but running the quarterback gets those numbers back in the favor of the offense, right? So, I think that's going to be a great challenge for us this weekend because the kid's a stud.
Michael and then Justin.
Two questions. I asked you about fourth down decisions the other day. I was wondering, to what extent do analytics play a role in those decisions? Do you have a chart? Do you have someone you're telling you?
We do. So we have a chart and we partner with a company that does all that stuff for every. I'd be killing you if you're in my meeting right now. that was in a team meeting, boy. Woo! Golly, like Coach Deggy would say. So we work, and so then there's two coaches in the box working with us on that are part of that conversation. The hard part about that, or not the hard part, the different part about that is that the analytics stuff I find it fascinating because some of the suggestions to me are like crazy. You know what I mean? I know. So when I was at San Jose State, I'll tell you guys a quick story. I was at San Jose State, and Ben was my book guy, okay, our chief of staff. And we're at Texas, okay? It's our second game, and we're building the program. And we're in the first half, and we're down 3, okay? And we have a fourth and 9 from the -26, I think, okay? And like it's like we're into the second quarter, like we're like playing, and we're it's a close game. And Ben comes up to me, he's like, "Hey man, the book says go for it." And I look at him, I can't tell you what I said, but I was just like, "What?" But because everything in that is based on the numbers, right? It's based on the numbers, right? It's based on the numbers of that San Jose at that time was not supposed to beat Texas. So in order to do that, have a chance to do it, you have to take these ungodly risks. But at the same time, your football brain comes in and you're like, hey, this is a 1-possession game in the second quarter right now. If I do that, I give them, if we don't get it, because it wasn't like we were blocking them very well, and so we're going to get 4th and 9. So it's just like those decisions I think are really tricky. But it does definitely impacts our conversations about it.
I assume you punted in that situation.
We did.
I was watching the Big 12 Uncovered documentary thing that was on the other day, and you were talking about the change of the schedule, not only from a sense of getting in the stadium and kind of getting used to the lights and the nighttime and all that, but giving your coaches and your staff a chance to maybe have a little bit of a break during the week on Wednesday nights. Why is that important to you, and are guys following your instruction to do that?
Absolutely. I think there are so many instances of coaches just burying themselves in this profession, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I think just if we are going to ask our players to be well-rested, able to focus, able to execute at a high level, and we know that sleep is a major component of that, like, why would we not ask our coaches to do the same thing? And this has come from years of conversations with other coaches. The biggest one being Chip Kelly. Chip was so adamant about the schedule and so adamant about guys taking care of themselves. And then I have enough experience as an assistant coach where I was in those situations where I did sleep in the office, and like, how effective of a coach was I the next day? Was I a great teacher? Did I have great energy? Did I have great ideas? Was I creative? You know what I mean? And so I think where we're at with the balance of our schedule, primarily we did it so that we could be in the stadium 48 hours from kick and have everything that comes with that environment at that time of the day. But I think a side benefit, hopefully, is that our guys do get some rest and do get recharged to make the big push for the weekend and game day.
Our last two will be Justin and then Jason.
So you have experience coaching at the FCS level.
Yep.
At Cal Poly. How do you reflect on your time there, and is there one particular moment that you really enjoyed?
Oh, it was amazing. It was a great experience. My first job. It was right when I left here as a GA. I went with Rich Ellerson, Deserts Forum legend, and I went with my good friend Dave Phipp, and Dave Phipp and I shared the supply closet in McHale where like tennis and I think who's in there, tennis and someone else that part of it, like right when you walk in that door, Phip and I were in that supply closet. That was our office. And so we went to Cal Poly together, working for Rich, and it was awesome. And I'll tell you this, I was there for 4 years, coached 4 NFL receivers. Like there's really good players, you know what I mean? Nowadays, those guys would be snapped up, you know, like they would never finish their careers there, you know, but it was a great experience there. We loved San Luis Obispo. We loved the university. Working for Coach Ellerson was amazing because he was such like an outside the box thinker, and he was the most outside the box thinker I've ever been around. And it was fun because we were part of building a program there. You know, I think the year I left to go work for Coach Tomey at San Jose State, I think we're 9-2. You know, and we kind of started from not so strong, and then the next year they went to the playoffs and they beat Montana at Montana, and so just lots of fond memories from that FCS time. And we played Weber, and we played a bunch of teams. I know, you know, they're in the Big Sky, which back then, like Cal Poly and Davis and Sac State hadn't been absorbed to the Big Sky. They were Cal Poly was kind of independent, and then there's like a kind of league that they put together. But good coaching, good players, good games. It's like all that's really impressive football.
And if you're able to get to a point where you're playing a lot of younger players, what's the benefit of that experience for those guys?
Anytime guys get to play in the game, the biggest adjustment in my opinion, for all high school or young players when they get here it's two things. It's the volume, or just the amount of scheme and calls and plays. If it's a defensive player, it's the adjustments, it's the multiple, it's like there's so much there. If it's the offense, it's just inventory, just so many more plays than they're used to most of the time. But the second thing, and probably the biggest thing, is the speed of the game. And just them not, coming from high school, there's no way you can have a feeling for what it's going to be like to be on the field here Saturday night.
Last question, we go to Jason Shearer.
Obviously, you've told us the message, don't overlook the opponent and all that. Is that something, though, you have to hammer home to these guys, or are they pretty good about understanding this opponent's just like last week's?
I think when you get to be a really good program, I think there's an understanding of that, and I think we're building towards that. That's what we want to be. We want to be consistently in that headspace where it doesn't matter who we're playing. Because in college football, you only get to play 12 guaranteed. Right? So everyone's like, oh, well, it's not a conference game, or like, who cares? It's the most important game of the year because it's the only game we get to play this week. We only get 12 of them. We only get one this week, right? So trying to help them understand that, and I think they do with how they've responded in the practice environment and their intention this week.
And then just because we asked on Monday, just following up, any update on Tyler Powell? I know you don't like talking about injuries, but...
Yeah, so Tyler Powell is going to be out for the year. And we love him, and we're here to support him. And we've got great people that are going to help him get back to a speedy recovery.
Thank you, everybody.
Bear down.